So now we have the pseudo selectors. We have invalid, invalid. We are changing the borders. And we are doing that for the input submit as well. And I know it's weird. We could just improve the selector, but I'll just leave it like this. There's no way that my input submit can be invalid. So I will duplicate code for that, but no problem. So right now we're going to jump to the JavaScript. So first thing we need to do is detect when the input is invalid, right? I know that we can just go here and set the custom message. So let's do this first. So I'm going to create input.
You mean script there instead of style?
Oops. Input. So just get the first input and I can just jump in and start setting. What is the function name? What is the function name, guys? I can just put it here to set the custom validity.
Set custom validity and
Just that. And I can just put some message, right? So now I have this custom message. But it's not that easy, you know. I want a certain message for when there's no value on this, and I want a different message when this is not a phone number, a correct format for a phone number. So to do that, I need to I need to listen for the invalid event. So I'll just create this new variable inputs, and I'm gonna query all inputs. Again, I'm querying the input type submit as well. No big deal. And I'm gonna add an event listener for all those inputs. But I can't call the add event listener function to an array, right? I can't just do that. So I need to loop through all of them and add event listeners for each one of them. So I'm creating a loop, and for each of those loops,
You say you can't set an event listener for just one element in the array?
yeah, I can't for an entire array. So I can,
You can't just say inputs 1 or input 0.
yeah, I could just have two different inputs 0 and then inputs.
Like that?
Yeah, I can do that
Okay.
because I'm targeting just a single element. But if this input grows and have more elements, I want to have all of them to have the same behavior. So I'm gonna make a future-proof solution. So for every single input, I'm adding an event listener. And this event listener is the invalid listener. And now let's just check this out. Let's just get the target, which is the invalid element that this event triggered, and let's check it out, the result. So I'm gonna open my DevTools. I'm gonna send this. I got these two elements, and it's just returning this HTML for me. It's not helping at all. So just change that to console.dir. Now I have those two guys over here. And let's scan scan them.
Hey, Zeno, how come it doesn't pick up 3? You're just getting 2, but your button, or you got 3 inputs, right?
Sure. It's not picking 3 because the input submit is not invalid.
Okay, got it.
Got it? Cool. So we can scan this, check all the properties, default checker, default value, form action, max length. We got all the events over here, invalid, on input, This is going to be important later on. Shadow root. And we got this validation message. So what you can think is, okay, so I'll just set this property to a different message, and I'll change the validation message, and I'll be fine. But that's not the idea. We want different messages for different validity states. And speaking about validity states, look at this object over here. Validity. Let's scan that. So we have a bunch of different objects here. We have bat input equals false, custom error false, pattern mismatch false, and we have value missing equals true. So based on the validity state, we can set a proper validation message, all right? So I'm just gonna create a different function called set validation message, okay? And I'm just gonna call that. And here's the input. Just console.dir. So I'm not doing anything, just calling a function and doing the same thing that I was doing before. Okay, it's all right. So now we have this guy. We have the input, we have both of them, of course.
What's the benefit of extracting that into its own function?
You're gonna see later on, because we need to detect a different event. So I'm just doing some, we can put all the code over here, but I'm just putting on a function because I'm gonna reuse that. So now let's just put the console.log, so we know that we have this validity object. So we can just see that. Validity state. And we know that we have this value missing property. So both are true, right? Both are missing value. If we just look back there again, both are true. If I put some value over here and I resend this form, I'll just have one result. This one is invalid. And I'll get the same stuff, value missing equals true, but if I put some value over here, oops, we need to put the pattern over here, right? So what is the regex for this one? I'm not very good at regex, I don't care about this one. So I can just go to HTML5 pattern, go to phones, USA phones. I can just copy and paste that. But we can also do this. It's not a big deal. The way they are doing is this D means any digit, but we can also use that format that we saw yesterday. We want from 0 to 9. We want 3 numbers, right? We want 3 characters, and then we want a dash, and then we want the same thing, 3 numbers and a dash, and now we want 4 numbers. Is that correct? Yeah?
Does it need to be backslash for the dashes?
I think backslash is on the dash.
Oh. Cool. Yeah, we need to escape that. Cool. That's how you do it. Okay. Let's try to send this again. Just gonna put some value over here, some value over there, send it again. Now, value missing is false, but pattern mismatch is true. So that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted to see when there's value missing and when the pattern is mismatched. So now it's just...
Can you pause on this code for 1 second, the other code? Yeah. How come you don't, on 36, do you need a semicolon after that, or do you not have a function?
No, our functions
Not
even.
after function, 'cause only
No.
statements are supposed to get semicolons, and statements do something, and what's the other one? Functions
Yeah, if you define a function like this, set validation message,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
then you need a semicolon. So I would just make an if statement over here. If input.validity value missing, I would just set a message, set custom validity. Let's see if it's gonna work. Fill this out, dude. So we got this one right. But wait, why is it triggering this again? We fill this out. So the first state, let's check this state. So we are just filling this out. We send it. It worked. But in this case, I'll just send the form. Now it's invalid. I'll fill this out and still like giving me this message. That's because we can't just listen for the invalid event. We also need to detect the input event, because that way we can see that, okay, it's not the invalid anymore, so I can just remove that message. And the way we can do this is just create a new event listener for input, and I'm gonna call the same function. And on this, I'm gonna reset the custom validity all the time, like this. Let's see if it's gonna work. Sending this, okay, fill this out. I'm filling it, and now I don't get that message again. If I try to send it, it's correct. Fill this out, dude. I'll just put some value, but still I have this, please match the requested format. I don't want this message. Now it's easy. If same stuff. Now we want pattern mismatch. Actually, this one is not the correct, like fill it as the placeholder tells you. Okay, I'm gonna send this out. Fill it as the placeholder tells you. So this one is tricky. You had to like check that it's not only setting the validation message randomly, because you need to know what is the validation state. But it's good that we are like pushing a little bit and exploring new stuff. So let's move on to the next one.